Apple making some big announcements that we've been breaking down for you here on ZDNet. What's the outlook for the different offerings? We're going to go to ZDNet's David Gewirtz for his thoughts on this. So David, let's just start with the Apple Card. Is this something you think the market will embrace or potentially see as a gimmick?
Yeah, Apple Card is potentially interesting because credit cards are so rife with breaches and security problems and skimmers and things like that. The downside of Apple Card is it looks like the physical card isn't going to have any barcode on it, or I'm sorry, any magnetic strip on it, which means that for a lot of small vendors, it's still probably not going to be valid. And so what that'll mean is you're still probably going to have to carry multiple cards, one that is your traditional credit card and one that is an Apple Card. I know Apple is moving heavily to try to move you in that direction. And there's a good potential over time that there'll be more uptake in both chip-based units as well as in the uptake of things like Apple Pay and Samsung Pay and so forth. This is all good in the sense of our individual consumer security. Now, whether the deals that come from Apple Card, whether the interest rates are good, whether the rewards programs are good, or whether you want to be affiliated in any way with Goldman Sachs is a completely separate issue. But moving towards a more secure foundation for credit card transactions, there's nothing about that that's not good. We need that.
Okay, David, so moving on now to Apple Arcade. Expand on that for us from a gamer's perspective, or in many cases, of course, the parent's perspective. Is this going to be a good option?
Well, Apple Arcade does have some potential. Again, it depends on what the content is in Apple Arcade. See, the problem with mobile games is that there has been this huge uptake in free games, and obviously free is better than something you pay for. But what happens is once you start getting into the free game, they're nickel and diming you to the point where some of the free game vendors are billion-dollar companies out of nothing but in-game purchases. So the advantage of Apple Arcade, particularly for parents, is if you set this thing up, give it to your kids, and they don't need to keep coming back to the well for more money, or they have the ability to just stay in the game without having to be taken out and making a purchase decision, every 5 or 10 minutes. The downside, of course, is the content. Are you going to have the games that you want to play? And we also don't have a price point for this. So we don't know what you're going to be asked to pay per month. My guess is you're again looking at roughly $10 a month.
All right, and David, the Apple TV app, still the same app with a few more options, but still without Netflix. So is Apple just too far behind with this, you think?
This is an interesting case because Apple's trying to weekly redefine the TV watching experience, and they're not doing all that well. The other day, my wife asked me which channel was one of the shows that we watch, and in her case, she meant which streaming service was the show. And we're constantly trying to remember which streaming service has what show we're watching. And if Apple can aggregate all that together, a small amount of confusion can be reduced. But Apple's not aggregating it all together because powerhouses like Netflix are not part of this service. So you still have that cognitive question of which service am I getting, which am I going with, and so forth. The one unusual factor about this is that Apple is making this program available, this app available on things like smart TVs, Roku's, and Amazon's Fire Sticks. And that means they're moving outside of their own products, which means that they're trying to have a wider reach for this. Will it succeed? I mean, it's nothing special right now, and it's probably not going to be for a while. But will it be in a few years? Maybe.
Okay, and finally, Apple's yet-to-be-priced video streaming service. Does this have the potential, do you think, to knock Netflix out of the water?
Well, one of the things that there are really two factors when you look at a premium streaming service, and one is how much content do you get for the amount you're paying, and what are the shows that are on that service. So for example, HBO, I'm going to subscribe to HBO for as long as Game of Thrones runs. Now that's running out this season, so HBO may be losing me as a subscriber, but I don't care what else is on HBO as long as I can see Game of Thrones. I'm a Star Trek person, so we're part of CBS, but CBS All Access has me as long as they keep producing Star Trek. So if the Apple service produces really excellent programming that people will pay for just to watch those shows, then they have a great chance of using that as a leader to get people in to watch the rest of their stuff. But is it likely that they're going to compete in terms of the volume of video that's available, the number of movies, the number of programs, the big libraries that either Netflix or Amazon or Hulu has at this time? Probably not. But, they're bringing in really heavy hitters, in particular Oprah. And so if that appeals to you, then you might want to subscribe to the service simply to watch Oprah on a regular basis, or simply to watch the new Steven Spielberg series, or I mean, Amazing Stories, when it came out back in I think it was the 90s, the first variant of it, it was really good. So there's probably going to be some really good video, really good programming on this. But is that going to be compelling enough to have you spend anywhere between $10 and $20 a month to watch? We don't know.
David, we appreciate your thoughts on all of this. And for more on Apple's latest offerings, be sure to check out ZDNet.